All right, 1.3b, simplifying fractions. This is a point that I didn't like when I was going through math. It's a part where the teacher marked you wrong even though you swore you had the right answer. For example, you got an answer 2/4. The teacher said put a half mark or full credit off and said it's 1/2. You answered something like 10/30. The teacher marked it half off or whatever and said it's 1/3. You answered 18/63. The teacher said it's 2/7. And at that point, you could not comprehend how you were wrong when you did all the work you were supposed to do and still got everything that you weren't supposed to, or still got the answer you weren't supposed to get. Well, in each of the situations, the teacher was actually right. When it comes to fractions, we always have to write them in what we call lowest terms. In order to get to lowest terms, we need to check to see if we can divide both parts of a fraction by a number. So when working with fractions, when you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions, or doing anything where you get a fractional answer, unfortunately, now you have to add a check to where you see if the fraction can be reduced even more. So looking at these fractions again, what you have to do is look at this and recognize that, hey, 2 and 4 are both even, so they can both be divided by 2. And so 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. That is the lowest term, because you can't divide 1 and 2 by anything outside of 1. So it's kind of like our prime factorization thing where you're looking to find numbers that go into it. The thing here is you're looking for the same number in both numbers. So 10 and 30, even if you go a long way, 10 and 30 are both even. Again, even though the 10 goes in, but they're both even. So you could say, hey, I can cut 10 in half and get 5. I can cut 30 in half and get 15. And now that 15 and 5 both end in 5, it means I can probably pull out a 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. There you go. Or as I said, you could have said, hey, both of these are, end in 0, so divide them both by 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 30 divided by 10 is 3. But the bottom line is that it actually is 1/3, not 10/30. So you don't want to give the wrong version of the fraction whenever you end up with it. And then 18/63, I think we should recognize from yesterday that this is a 9, and 6 plus 3 is 9, which means that's also a 9. So we can actually pull out a 9. If it begins with 1, that means it was probably 2, because 9 times 2 is 18. If it begins with 6, it's probably 7. So it actually would be 2/7 as you break that down. So this class is going to give you extremely difficult problems to deal with. I don't need to do that to you, because after this semester, you won't really need the skill anymore. But we do at least need to help you develop a system of checks, because there are, again, tests that you'll take at some point in your life where you might not be able to use calculators, and you need to at least have something just in case you have to. But again, I won't give you hundreds and thousands and all kinds of other things to worry about. Just have this basic system down and you should be okay. Whenever you get a fraction, just check to see if they're both even or if they can divide by 2. Check to see if you can divide by 3. There's a trick for that, which we'll talk about as we move forward. Check to see if you can divide by 5. Again, divide by 5 means it ends in 0 or 5. And then just keep checking until the fraction simplifies. So if you can pull out a 2, 3, or 5, kind of like we did here, look at the number again and say, again, kind of like we did with prime factorization, can we break that down anymore? And then just keep going until you can't. So at this time, please raise your hand and ask for the note sheet that accompanies the video. Again, raise your hand and ask for that note sheet that accompanies the video. I say that twice because obviously there are people who don't like to follow directions and say that they're watching the video. Anyway, as you get, actually pause the video if you don't have it yet, because I'm about to get started. But as you do this problem, again, the check that we have is 2, 3, 5. If you can do those, I think you should be okay, at least to get the number down to where it's supposed to be. So 10/12, both even. That means you can cut it in half. Cutting in half is 2. So 10 cut in half, 2 goes into 10 5 times, 2 goes into 12 6 times. That is your reduced or your simplified lowest term fraction. That's all, okay? 15/25, they both end in 5. Again, figure out these little tricks that you can use. 5s end in 0 or 5, because if you look at the multiples of 5, just the first few, it's 5, 0, 5, 0, 5. So again, whenever you have two numbers that end in 5 or 0, that means you can probably divide by 5. But either way, 5 goes into 15. 5, 10, 15 3 times. 5 goes into 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 5 times. Again, you can use your fingers. That's part of why you want to learn to count by those numbers, because if you don't learn to count by those numbers and you don't know your facts, then it's hard for you to figure out where your number is. Number 3, 8/20. First thing I notice is that they're both even. 8 turns into 4, 20 turns into 10. Now I stopped on 5/6 because they're right next to each other. That usually means that it's simplified. I stopped on 3/5 because I know for a fact that 3 and 5 have nothing in common. But when you look at 4 and 10, they're still both even, which means I can divide them again to be 2 over 5, which is actually your reduced or simplified or lowest term part. So just remember again that what you need to be working on is the skill of just breaking that number down, making sure you understand what's going on, and it's not a major thing. It will cost you half points on my quiz. So if you stop at 6 over 15, that's pretty good. I'll give you half credit, but after a while, it just kind of gets frustrating to keep losing half credit and seeing marks on your paper when you're working for perfects, like some of you are able to get. 6 over 15. So again, you look at the 6, you look at the 15. They're not both even, so it's not a 2. They're not both ending in 5 or 0, so it's not a 5. But just check 3 real quick. And what I know is that 3 times 2 is 6. And I know that 5 times 3 is 15, which means 3 is a number. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 would be 5, because again, 5 times 3 is 15. And that would be it. Again, 2 and 5 have nothing at all in common, as we say they are both prime, because remember, you can't divide that by anything but 1 and 2. Can't divide this by anything but 1 and 5. So that's as far as it can go. 12 over 18, once again, both even. Let's just look for the key hints. They're both even, so cut them in half. That'll be 6 over 9. Well, those two numbers, again, if you look at them, even though they're not 5s, check 3 real fast. And I know 3 times 2 is 6, and I think 3 times 3 is 9, which means I can divide these both by 3. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. That actually should be 2/3. And then 12 over 24. Again, if you don't see the fact that 12 goes into 24 because you're just not there yet, that's okay. You can still look and say, hey, these are both even, so I'm going to cut them in half, which is 6 over 12. And then these are both even again, so I'm going to cut them in half again, which is 6 cut in half is 3, 12 cut in half is 6. And then guess what? Both of these both divide by 3. And so 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. And so if you saw that both of these went into 12, you would have ended up here faster. But it doesn't really matter how fast you get there, as I'm trying to show you. Just get the right answer. There are times when you want to be fast. We'll worry about that when we get at least the foundation in. But I don't want you worrying about having to get everything done quickly. 3/10 plus 1/10, as we know, is 3 plus 1 is 4. Over 10 to 10 is that. Sorry, my video is running long. I just noticed that. But here's the thing you got to start doing. 4 and 10 are both even, so you have to reduce it. All right. 2/5 times 3/4. Again, multiply across the top. 6, multiply across the bottom. 20. But notice 6 and 20 are both even, so we can cut them in half. 3 over 10. That's done. And even on this one, remember that when you do division, we don't know how to division, so we keep, change, flip, which means this gets written the same. This gets turned into multiplication. This becomes 6 over 1, which when you multiply, you end up with 18 over 4. And notice again, both of these are even, which means I can cut them in half to get 9 over 2 is my answer. So sorry about having an 8-minute video. I didn't realize it was going to last that long, but this is an important concept. I just wanted to make sure you understood what was going on for the most part, and hand that paper in so I can kind of look at it and get your worksheet for the day and then work to finish it. Remember, we do have a quiz over everything from the last 2 weeks coming up this Friday. Sorry again for the length of the video. Take care.